Hi, I'm Jeff Sikarsky.
I'm Jason Primrose.
And welcome to Gentlemen, the #1 podcast for open-hearted leadership.
Amazing. Great on that second take.
Sometimes you got to have a do-over.
Yeah, we don't like to hide things here, so we just have it all out in the open. I am feeling really grounded, even in my the technology ridiculousness, but I'm celebrating a new practice of getting grounded each day before the day, and then spending some time outside, just feet to earth, because I'm realizing that if I'm not grounded, I float away, which I think is really funny, which I got from Leah, who you introduced me to. What are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating getting to have this conversation with CJ. As a result of all the technology breakdowns, we actually got to talk a little bit about our lives and where we lived for a little bit, and to find out that we're not too far from each other in LA at one point in time, and so just kind of celebrating how small of a world this is, even though we're just meeting for the first time here. So I'm really excited about that.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think what I also want to celebrate is the milestone. Right now we are on season 2. This is our first guest on season 2. So let's really celebrate that. We did our first episode of the season last week, and that we get to have CJ on here. I know this is going to be an amazing conversation. We've already talked about just a few things on the side, and I already get a sense of who he is, and this is going to be a really great conversation.
Yeah,
I agree.
Jeff and Jason, just wanted to, appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys, and hopefully lift up your listeners and motivate them and inspire them with our words and our dialogue and the conversation that we're going to have. And yeah, I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Welcome. I'm also celebrating that CJ and I have a lot of conversations,
True.
and just I always come out of it being yes, life, let's go. What can I tackle next? So before we get into today's episode, if you want more in the form of community, you can follow us on Instagram at Gentlemen the Podcast, or join our Facebook group by searching Gentlemen the Podcast. So let's dive in deep. This is our conversation around growth mindset. Brought on a dear friend of mine, as we said. I think it hasn't been that long, but it's been a long time. It's been 5 years now. So we met in 2017. And it feels like we've been brothers. I feel like we've known each other our whole lives. It's so weird. But when I think about growth mindset, I literally think about CJ. That's just when we were looking at the kind of the potential themes for the different episodes, and it's have a growth mindset. And I was CJ. So it just felt right to plug in here. So I would like to introduce CJ. I mean, what I know of him is he's an award-winning thought leader. I know that you're a writer, a creative, an influencer. You're a Google Next Gen policy leader. You're a GQ insider. The accolades, you've been featured on every major outlet, and the accolades they would fill up an entire mood board easily. And I just admire all that you've done and all that you're up to, and I'd love to hear from you who you are outside of all that stuff. Who are you at your core? Who are you as a person?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for that introduction. from now on, anytime I travel anywhere, I'm just gonna have you come with me and just announce me with that. That's like the best introduction I think I've heard ever. Yeah, honestly, guys, at the end of the day, I'm a dad. I'm a dude, just like like I'm just a person. I'm just a man, just trying to act and live in this world with integrity and honesty. And I don't care about any of the professional stuff. I in fact, even the personal stuff. Like, I mean, for me, I just feel like it's my mission in life to inspire and motivate people. And through experience and through, just through challenges that life has offered me, I'm hopefully able to share just a bit of knowledge, even if it's just me listening to someone. So I'd like to say I'm a good listener, I think. But to inspire people. And I think that it's kind of hard in the world that we live in, with so much chatter going on, and so much clutter going on. How can we declutter things and speak to one another on a very human level? Each and every one of us wants to be seen, heard, respected, loved, admired, know that our lives have a meaning to it. So at the end of the day, I would like to be, I'd like to see myself as a person that embraces that.
Mm. Yeah.
I see
Thank
you
you
as
for sharing all of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I see you as really nurturing. I see you as patient. That may be like the dad side.
Well, that's totally the dad side.
I see you as compassionate. I think in our conversations, you're very vulnerable. I also see you as like strategic. Like you're very careful with how you move. And I see you as really loving, like, and generous. Like, I mean, let's just like start by, yes, my life started to change very quickly. But we need to also recognize that, like, CJ is literally the reason for that. He introduced me to my literary agent. He introduced me to Rika, who helped me build the NFT project and take it to the DAO to get funding. Like, yeah. So from a someone who really believes in people and really supports people, CJ, I don't know anyone like of a higher caliber, because people always get weird about introductions and passing things off and like bringing people up and like being real. It's not just in the dynamic of like the world. We're talking about like between Black people. So supporting Black people, Black creatives in Hollywood, in LA, like getting different places. People get all weird about stuff. So CJ just doesn't have that, especially when there's a lot of trust built up, Right. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's a mindset, right? We're discussing growth mindset, and for me, I want to be very open and honest with all of you that's listening, and especially with you gentlemen. It was through trial and error. It was through challenges. It was through experience. I was very fortunate that I found a lot of early success as soon as I got out. As soon as I was in college in Los Angeles, like I just found a lot of success. So when I actually ran into like troubles and challenges, I actually didn't know what to do because it was so foreign. I felt like I was doing something wrong. And the reason why I say that is because networking and connecting people had a lot to do with that. I live in Los Angeles, California, and this is a town full of sharks. And it's nepotism and the ego plays a very large role in the way people conduct themselves on a personal level and on a professional level. So when people say networking, they don't necessarily mean helping someone else get ahead. They mean I'm getting something out of a relationship that I'm building. So a lot of those relationships are very inauthentic, and I don't like that. I'm here for authentic conversations, authentic relationships on a very personal level and a professional level. And like I said, found a lot of success, found a lot of challenges, found success through the adversity of those challenges. And I was very fortunate that the best way to describe it, if you've ever seen that movie Forrest Gump, I'm basically like Forrest Gump, like bumping into people that were very influential at the right moment in life and heard lessons at the right moment in life. From J.J. Abrams to George Lucas to Clint Eastwood to Will Smith to Tony Robbins to Tim Ferriss, like at these very odd moments of my life where I understood that, holy shit, like what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. And I will never be able to take something from you because it's already yours. And you're never going to be able to take anything from me because it's already mine. So why would I be navigating my lifestyle in a way in which I'm hoarding, in which I'm scared, in which I'm trying to take something from you? And by the way, that doesn't mean that people haven't tried to do that to me. I've seen it. In fact, I had an experience just last year where I was consulting a brand. I'm the CMO. I have a stake in the company. I'm getting paid a lot of money. And we wanted to bring on a COO. And the COO was very combative, specifically with me. And I am the only Black member of the core executive team at that time. And it felt like it was like a little bit racist. Just some of the terminology that was being thrown around, a lot of the questioning of things. And I remember, I think I had this conversation with Jason actually, but I remember being like, what's the best way to handle this? Like now, after going through all of these experiences, do I just say, hey bro, I have more equity in this company. I have more of a say. You're here because of me. Or do I let it go? Or what do I do here? And I remember like having this conversation with Jason, thinking about it a little bit. And I said to myself, you know what? This person really, really wants this more than I do. This person really feels a certain way about something that I'm not as passionate about. I took a step back. And it was actually like one of the smartest decisions that I ever made. Because then I was allowing them to do whatever they needed to do. And I still check in. I still connect the dots. I still, hey, how are you? What do you need from me? How can I contribute? Because I don't see like they're taking anything from me. But what I did understand was that I had to be much more strategic. Jason described that to me, but I had to be much more strategic about how I network, how I grow my network, and really, time, right? How we spend our time and who we spend our time with is so important to me now. So me taking time away from a toxic situation and putting more time and energy into another situation and other people that need my help, like a Jason, like a Jeff, like anybody that I feel like, oh wow, like I actually believe in the integrity of this person, and I would like to see how I can like help them. And it always comes back around because again, like I said, what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. So it's a win-win. It just is. If that's a personal mission of mine, and I'm helping somebody on a professional level as well, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and I heard like from a turning point in what you shared, like you noticed in that moment that what you felt the need to hold on to wasn't actually that important, and what was actually important in that moment was relationship and the potential partnership. And it wasn't about being right, but it was about providing value to somebody else. And what opened up in the relationship past that for you? Like what did that open up?
From that specific situation or just in general?
Well, I mean, both.
Yeah, I mean, well, what ended up happening was this person did apologize. They were very much acknowledging that their behavior was out of line. So I didn't have to have that, let's have a confrontation. And to your point, Jeff, I'm really glad that you brought that up. the ego plays such a larger role in the way that we conduct ourselves now. Social media plays a large role in that. And to be honest with you, men, ego plays a very large role. Masculinity, and what does that mean for each and every one of us? It's very different, right? So with this particular person, masculinity to them, I could tell meant something completely different than me. Respect meant something different. So yeah, it's fine. The relationship that we have is fine. I just pick and choose when I talk with that particular person. Moving forward, I was able to focus on what I really cared about. I think that in life, in life we have challenges, right? But also there's ebbs and flows as we get older in life, and we get to understand that some things that were very important to me even a year ago aren't as important to me today, and vice versa. And so, I was able to actually just navigate that skill set into doing something. I think literally, if memory serves, and this is not at all to toot my own horn, but I think as soon as I stepped away from that project, somebody emailed me at the same exact time of hey, is it cool if if we fly you out to New York so you can be the face of our brand? Yeah. Yeah, sure. So that's what I mean. It's the universe works in that way. But it's a mindset. It really has to be a mindset, because I can be bitter, I can be angry, I can go on these tangents and these rants. And I've done that too when I was younger, and at times maybe with Jason, I'll be F this person, F that person. But at the end of the day, it's a choice, right? And it's a choice of what does that mean if I'm going to give up my power to a situation or a person in a way in which it's detrimental to my own health? Why would I do that when I could easily turn the other cheek? Now, I'm not talking about being a bitch, everyone. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that turning the other cheek, as in moving forward. I'm a very big advocate of it starts here with yourself. Starts here. It starts here and then it goes here. So right here has to be whole, and you have to feel comfortable with who you are as a person and on your journey, and understanding that you've gone through adversity before. Think about the worst moment that you've ever had in your entire life when you thought you could do nothing beyond that. And look at where you are today. You're still here. And you still have the opportunity to move on. And when you're using this, in addition to this, and you're saying to yourself in a very practical way, what's the first thing I can do right now to find happiness, to find success in any way that you want? What's the one thing you can do? That's it. That means so much more than giving a shit about what somebody else thinks. It just does. It's just much more important to me.
Well, and I get that it's a source of personal power, right? And it's forward moving. Because as soon as I'm in a position where I'm giving that to somebody else, all of a sudden it's away from me, it's in my past, and I'm not actually moving in a direction that's important to me. And so I hear the opportunity is to be in that choice every moment. Yeah.
And we also have to accept that that's life. Life is going to offer you distractions, adversity, challenges. It's up to you. This is what defines you as a person. This is what defines your character. How do you respond? You shut it down. You say, "Oh no, it's a challenge. No, what do I do?" Or do you keep it moving? And if you keep it moving, how do you do it that's innovative? Now that is the secret sauce to moving forward. How are you doing it differently than what's been done before? That's you using your head, not you thinking about, how do I solve this thing that I'm not that passionate. You know what I mean? Why do I care about what somebody else thinks when I need to care about what I think first? And if I walk with integrity, I don't need to worry about what other people think.
That's an interesting nugget. Yeah. That's interesting. I'm gonna keep that one. I'm gonna keep that one. If I
Keep-
walk with integrity, why do I need to care what other people think?
It's a very and by the way, Jason, to add on to that, it's a very common thing that we talk about now, right? Like we put a lot more emphasis. Again, it's because of the ego. We put a lot more emphasis on caring what other people think. But at the end of the day, and this happens. This is a conversation I'm sure both of you have had with other people throughout life. Rather it be like, oh, I don't want to say something because I don't want to overstep somebody's boundaries, or like, somebody saying to me like, hey, I'm not racist, or like, I'm not sexist, or none of that. I'm not, you don't have to say those things if you're none of those things, because people will always pay attention to your actions, not your words. That's what they'll remember about you. In fact, no, hold on. Let me take a step back. People will remember you by the way you made them feel. That's something that you have to remember. So in saying that, how are you conducting yourself? Are you living in integrity with who you are and who you want to be? Because they have to be in correspondence with each other. And if they're not, it will show.
Yeah, and I hear you have this commitment. We talked about at the beginning, we're getting to it again, which is I'm committed to being in integrity. I'm committed to being a man of integrity. And like we've also spoken about, like the ego never goes away, right? The ego always has its opportunity to react. Sometimes we respond, sometimes I respond, sometimes I react. So I'm curious, being on a journey of growth, which is never done for you, where do you still feel challenged around your integrity? Where do you still feel challenged where you feel the resistance of your ego wanting to take over?
This is something that, Jason and I have spoken about. I think that, the journey of being a person of color is very complex in the world in which we live in now. And it's very difficult to know if you're getting something that's attributed to the color of your skin, or you're not getting something that's attributed to the color of your skin, and people feeling connected with you or disconnected, right? So that's a bit of a challenge. Like letting that go is a big challenge. And it's something that like I have to, I'm much more mindful of now. I would say I was less mindful of it until 2020 when Black Lives Matter and social justice became a much more prominent conversation. Because then people were looking at me and reacting to me vastly different than they did before. So we're like now, like I'm uncomfortable in certain situations. I took my daughter to her first hockey game on Tuesday, and we're like, there's not a lot of black people in a hockey game, but it was like one of the few times that I felt like conscious of that I'm like, oh, like is somebody going to say something or do something? I felt a little bit of a tinge of being on guard. So I had to be able to let that go. I think that's like a current challenge. And also, being a dad, it comes with a lot of challenges as well. When you're a parent, people always have parenting advice for you, and you have to find ways to be polite about it. When you're, obviously it's like I'm raising my child, me and my co-parent, we're raising our child the way we want to. And people just observe, maybe, I remember getting this is a very interesting thing. And I'm going to go on a tangent real quick. But it will all make sense. I really like baseball, and my dad was like a big baseball guy. But we never played catch. That wasn't a thing. There was a lot of milestones of being a man that a man passes down to the younger versions of themselves, their sons, that my dad just didn't do. And he's a great guy. I love my dad. But he just wasn't. He just definitely wasn't ever going to win Father of the Year with me being his son. And I made a passing comment to my co-parent about oh, I'd love to play catch. I wish I'd love to play catch with my kid. And my co-parent reminded me that I could do that with my daughter. And that was like something that was kind of interesting because like I didn't even really think of it that way, and it wasn't me being sexist. It just didn't cross my mind. You know, it's like a father-son situation in my mind, and I'm like, I guess that is an easy father-daughter bonding experience. And I asked her if she wanted to do it. That's the sort of way we communicate. She said yes. So we go to Target, we get a catcher's mitt, and like some dude out of nowhere sees like me and her interacting and me getting like baseball gear for her, and he was like, you should get her a doll. And he was being very polite, but he was just like, you should get her a doll. You know, she's a girl, like she doesn't. And I remember being like, not furious, but just like agitated. That like, first of all, I don't know who the fuck you are. Second of all, like, I'm not going to sit here in the middle of Target and have this like conversation of why you're wrong. And that's where like that's a good example, Jeff, of like where the ego can easily make me be like. And then also it's like it's an older white dude talking to like a black dude with his daughter, you know, with a bond. So you know, there's a lot of layers to that, Jeff. Like there's just like it's a thing where like I have to be like, is this like is this because I'm with, you know, what is this? And I just let it go. I was like, hey, you know what? Thank you. Yeah, we're good. We're good. And we just kept it moving. And we played catch. And she loves it. She just, you know, she's just now starting a softball. And she's really into it. And, you know, I guess that's a good example of like not letting the ego take a hold of you and keeping it moving it forward. Right. So, you know, that was a great lesson and continuing to take it one step at a time.
I just want to say there's two things I heard in that too. It's like it's the same trigger. It's the old white guy. It's always the same trigger because it really has me question myself.
Right.
Like in the dynamic that we live in, in the dynamic that we live in the social structure that we have, if an old white guy says anything to me about anything, I am immediately going to question myself. And the choice to make is, do I let whatever they're saying or thinking or however their hierarchy is in society dictate like how I move or what I choose in that moment, you know? And that to me feels like the constant struggle. And this is something I'm dealing with the partners in my business, where when they come with feedback, sometimes it comes from a place of like, I'm right and whatever's happening over there is wrong. And in the moment I sink into the shame of it, I guess, like the shame of like, oh, I'm wrong. I did this wrong. Like, but then I come back to this place like, no, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, you know, like this is solid. This is sound. It's like in that moment, I forget myself. Like I forget my power. It is very strange, but it is the biggest challenge that like, anytime I'm confronted with that force, that like that invisible force of supremacy, even if it's not being worn, right? It can be projected. And
you know, like Jason, to add on to what you're saying, it's like imposter syndrome is a very big deal with communities of color because where we're at right now, we are breaking a lot of generational curses, a lot of generational pain. The conversation that we're having right now, it's much more eloquent and nuanced, and we're able to be very respectful to one another, right? And it's all a very new space for us. So, you know, what does that look like when things are starting to become more equitable? We are getting generational wealth. We are getting positions of power. We are getting positions of influence. For some of us, or I would argue most of us, honestly, yeah, it would be very triggering if anybody were to question what we're doing. Because, you know, this is a new space. This is a new space. You know, what Jason, you know, what you're talking about is like you're doing something that hasn't been done before. And you're doing something that is in a brand new like space that people still aren't sure what to make of it. So of course everybody has an opinion, and that's the challenge, right? It's like, how do you own your own power and take criticism or feedback, right? With a grain of salt. And I think that that's a challenge for anybody. It doesn't matter what color you are, what sex you are. That's a challenge that we all face. But I definitely understand where you're coming from, Jason, because it is like this is a brand new space. It just is. It's just a brand new space.
Yeah.
We're having these very different conversations. I think a good example of that would be the growth mindset, right? And the scarcity mindset, which is that, I'm investing. And if I talk to a specific friend, in the days of it being a pipe dream of investing, it's like, oh man, if I had this much money, I'd probably invest in this, I'd probably invest in that, I'd do this. But then when you're actually there doing it, those conversations are, oh, I put X amount of dollars in this stock, or, I did this diversified portfolio. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of this new trend that's happening? That's a completely different conversation, right? So imagine being brand new to that conversation, and somebody is like, how do you even, you're investing in that? How do you even know what you're doing? Where'd you read that? Did you see that on YouTube? Or do you like Robinhood? Oh my God. Oh yeah, okay. Just that feedback will be enough to make you be like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. And you take that and not turn it into an argument or a point of like confrontation. You saying to yourself like, well,
or just doubt, self-doubt.
Yeah, or doubt. And doubt is like, dude. And doubt is fear is the mind killer, man. Like doubt is a part of that. Doubt, the fear of the unknown, will always be the biggest challenge that a human being will face in their life. And you can't turn it off. Like, we're wired in a certain way where we have to like defend ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally. That's the reason why we do the things that we do. But understanding, and this is where I like to, take a step back. Physically, sometimes even taking a step back. And understanding that, what other adversity have I faced that I've overcome? And how confident am I in my decision making? And if and both of them, lean towards the positive, then you just have to take what people say, with a grain of salt. How would I respond in that situation if somebody's doubting my abilities? Show them, not tell them, not gripe about it, not even say I'm going to work even twice as hard. It's just like, no, I'm just going to show them that, like, show don't tell, that I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about.
I had a conversation with someone about that specifically yesterday, and the person literally asked me, well, what would you do in this situation? And you know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say it. But I was like, actually, I have an example. And I told them the story about when I was working at Good Human, and the COO came in and was looking at everything, and he was like, I don't know if we need to keep you through the end of the year, and which would mean like I wouldn't get my royalties. And they brought in another marketing person to do like more digital marketing. And I was doing like awareness marketing, social media, email, but I was basically masterminding the whole ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. And it was their belief that it wasn't working. By like June, I think they said it wasn't working. By August, they were like, let's phase you out. By October, they asked me to actually leave the company. Oh, wow. So this is before Black Friday. So he said, well, what would you do? And I said, I'll tell you what I did. I said to the other person, I'm not leaving. We have a year-long contract. And I promise you that everything we did in the beginning of the year that you think isn't working is really going to net out here at the end of the year. And it's not because this person came in September or whatever and started to like kind of do all this stuff, because we've been audience building for like a long time now.
Right.
It's kind of a long tail effect. So what I said was I stood my ground. I was really confident in the outcome. I didn't let their kind of doubt in me diminish my power. And I let the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Yeah.
We made more in a day than they'd ever done in a month. We made more in a week than they'd done the year previous.
Wow.
Like, it was insane. Our fourth quarter was like 37% or 40% of our annual revenue just from November to the end of December.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need to say anything. And then I left. Like, and they asked me to stay on longer because there were things that couldn't be taken over by this other person until they had to find a new brand manager, because I literally was like, no, I have another offer. Like, I literally actually have to leave now.
Yeah.
So that, I'm like,
Yeah.
you just, and I think, you know, what we had a conversation about was like different types of communication styles.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, not being like you said, rolling up your sleeves, fuck you, it's like, look, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your concerns. We have to see this all the way through. I'm super confident in what we're doing, and I will continue to, you know, kind of facilitate and manage and oversee this execution through the end. So I think, to your point, right? It was one of those things, old white guy, triggering doubt. And then I had to have a lot of conversations around that to get me to a point where I felt confident enough to like stand my ground in what I created. And then I was also really passionate about the brand, really passionate about the story, and really passionate about the commissions that I was going to make in the fourth quarter after. So I was like, no, because this story is like, we're telling the story together. And I was just like, let me just finish it out.
I think that there's something really interesting in what you're saying when you take in the context of you're very passionate about where you were with that company, and then you didn't know what that was going to look like after that. But it ended up working out even better than what you thought it was going to work out. And I think that just shows a lot of times some of the like worst challenges that we face in our lives is like I said, it defines who we are. It's usually huge rewards that come, you know, maybe not when you want them to come, but like they will come eventually. You know, there was a time where I was on the set of Community, and I was like an up and coming screenwriter, and I was shadowing the writers of Community. It's an NBC comedy sitcom, if you guys remember that, and at the time, there was this actor named Donald Glover who was known for writing jokes behind the scenes. You wouldn't like, for the most part, the public knew him as like the funny black dude on Community. But he actually wrote a lot of like Tracy Morgan jokes, Tina Fey jokes. Tina Fey was Donald Glover's mentor at the time, and YouTube was like becoming a thing, not really a thing. It was like vlogging wasn't even a term that we were really using. It was just like, but viral videos. And he was one of those guys that could make viral videos like nobody's business, which is kind of how you really started to know who he was, right? So, you know, me seeing him was like way cooler than like Chevy Chase, who I've grown up, you know, seeing all of his movies. Had like all these like the beautiful women of the cast that I, you know, was like, oh my god, like Allison Brie, hello. I was just like really interested in seeing Donald Glover. Now, here's the interesting part of the story. Donald Glover is by himself, and everybody else is over here. And what he was doing was he was burying this like laptop, just this, and I'm so totally spacing on his name. The guy that plays Jeff on Community. I know this person.
I know who you're talking about,
Yeah, okay.
but I can't remember his name right now.
But he whispered to me that, like, oh, he always does that. He's always right. He's like, Donald's always doing something. Like, they respected him enough to give him his space. Like, that was like, they understood that there was something different about him, which I thought was really interesting. That's like things that they were kind of commenting and annotating, which is like, give him his space, not in a disrespectful way. They're like, oh, he's up to something. So I go and sit down with him and I talk with him, and the conversation that we had really transformed my life, because I'm setting up all the things I know about him, right? And he had just released this single where he was introducing himself as Childish Gambino. And it was very, very confusing for him. He was very, very, very worried because he's like kind of a geeky guy, and rap at that time, hip hop at that time, even Kanye was going through that. This was when Kanye was wearing the backpack. So people really weren't respecting that as hip hop. They didn't know what to make of that. So they were actually kind of making fun of him. And he said that, like, Jay-Z called him up and was like, dude, you're onto something. And he's like, well, if Jay-Z said that, then I'm going to keep doing this. And the thing that he was worried about was that he was creating his debut music. And his PR team, or whatever PR people were like saying to him, You're gonna need to debut this at the MTV UK Movie Awards, or Music Awards. And he was like, "What?" He's like, "Who watches MTV in like Europe? Like, you can't, like, what? Like, why can't?" And he goes, "Why can't I just like upload it on YouTube?" And they said, because that's not the way that we do business. It's not the way things are done. And I remember when he said that, why don't I just upload it on YouTube? I understood a lot of things just from that one conversation, which was that the world was shifting, and like, he was right. Ultimately, he was right. And afterwards, he did like start to follow more of his intuition. You see it now. Now the dude is just like considered, one of the best creatives in Hollywood, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I just remember being like, yeah, that guy's onto something, because then next thing you know, YouTube exploded. It did become a thing. MTV, it became irrelevant. He was just really onto something. That gave me that lesson of like, dude, innovation, you gotta follow your intuition. Like, you have to be innovative, and you can't chase trends. You can't chase, this is the way, the status quo. This is the way it's always done. You have to embrace your inner dialogue, and you have to be very conscious of the environment around you. It helped me develop my skills as a growth marketer. It helped me develop my skills as like a content creator, because I understood like how the world was changing. And one of the ways that I saw that it was changing was the way that we were absorbing content, and also the way that we were, and how things were going viral in the first place. So I understood virality a lot as well. But the growth marketing aspect of it, like, it really clicked for me when I had that conversation with him, because I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this dude is like, he's a writer, and now he's a comedian, and now he's like a music artist, and like, holy shit, like, people are really trying to box him in. And he's like, no, I'm not going to be boxed in. I'm not interested in that. But even somebody like him was struggling with like, how do I navigate these new waters?
Mm-hmm.
When I think in what you're sharing, I hear from me the idea of innovation as the catalyst for exponential growth. Because, fixed mindset, we can still make incremental steps. We can even make incremental leaps, but we're still inside the paradigm of whatever it is that we're operating in. And so for me, by innovating, it's like coming up with something new and different and disruptive that is outside the context of what's in front of me, but trusting my intuition to see that there might be possibility in it. And I know what's going to happen if I follow the path. If I see the path, I can say, oh, well, I already know where I'm going to be. And I can check in with myself. Is this actually the path for me in that moment to create that? But if it's not, and I have the vision, and Jason, you were saying earlier, what kept you in the possibility of completing your contract was being like, no, I see the vision and I trust in the vision. And then next week I might have to actually change it again. But right now, I'm committed to not listening to the fear. I'm committed to not taking the simple path. And because I know what happens, it's predictable. If you let me go right now, y'all ain't going to get that 37%, right? You're not going to have that opportunity. But I see the possibility. So as leaders in this work, part of our job is holding the vision when other people can't, or when other people won't, and asking them to step into it with us. And for me, that's an opportunity to innovate as well, right? Because the innovator is the person that's going to hold the vision no matter what, as opposed to the fear-based responses. Oh, let's turn it down. Let's start recalibrating because we might not hit that. And we might hit the recalibration, but is that what you want, right? Like, are you going for status quo, or are you going for disruption? Are you going to stay safe and to keep things in this illusion of control, or are you willing to create something that changes the course of history? And so if we look at the growth mindset for leaders in this world, and this is why this podcast exists for me as well, to have people like you on that are committed to holding the vision and to staying committed to the course and to innovation when other people won't.
Yeah.
And like you said, man, it takes something to step into that.
Take something. Yeah. I just have to say, I needed this conversation so badly. Like, that's been this entire week. No one understands what I'm doing. No one gets it. They just can't see it. And I'm like, I know this is going to work. I know it.
Ugh.
And it's just the same way that I knew that a Kickstarter would work for the book, even though I hadn't necessarily seen anyone do it with a novel. All of the moving mechanisms, it's just like, I had to remind myself of what you said, what have I faced in the past? How many times have I come close to running out of money? How many times have I come close to the line where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but then I got there. So it's like the limiting beliefs, right? We talk about evidence. It's like, well, there's too much evidence for the contrary.
Correct.
For the success inside the failure, the small failures. And so it's like, that's what's the driving force for me as far as I've come. And a lot of times it's CJ talking me off a ledge or telling me, like, does your energy need to be this place? And then I'm like, actually, maybe not, So I want to close us out with everyone sharing what they're taking from the conversation. And we will start with you, CJ.
Sure. Jeff's point was spot on, and exactly what you said too, Jason. I think that there's just something very interesting about what both of you just said back to back. And I think that there are practical steps that we can take to move forward in our life and to embrace our vision. And, my key takeaway from this conversation is that you have to stay curious. You have to stay open-minded. You can't let the ego push you in the direction that is not in alignment with the path that is your destiny. And you have to be able to be strong enough to know who you are and your values. And sometimes, guys, listener, anybody that's listening to this right now, sometimes it's as easy as understanding what your core values are and making sure that your lifestyle reflects that. And if it doesn't, that might be where a little bit of that uneasiness and fear is coming from. We have to take steps, proactive steps, to build our confidence. It just doesn't come overnight. It doesn't work like that. We have to be able to take that action and make it habitual to do that.
There are so many quotes that are going to come out of that. That was amazing, CJ.
Oh my
Thank you
God.
for sharing.
Yeah, all the clips.
Yeah.
Jason.
What about you, Jason? What are you taking with you?
Trusting myself, trusting my intuition, and also being in integrity with how I want how I want my business to go. Everything from operations to finances to like culture, to like types of communication that happens, and really holding that in a really high standard, and not letting it slip. You know, we talked about being casual, Jeff. I think that's a place where like rigor is really important. And as I step deeper into the role of CEO, it's challenging all of my old belief systems. But the other thing that's interesting, and I'm taking from this conversation and some other conversations I've had this week, is that people will only go half as far as you go. So I need to go like 100, 200% in for people to go even 100. So that's what I'm taking away from this conversation.
Yeah. What I'm taking away is there's this quote. It's like, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, like go together. And I'm really present in this moment, Jason, when you were talking about how you're leading this NFT process and everything for you. Like, I understand in my cellular makeup that I fully don't understand what it is that you're doing. But I trust in who you are as a leader, and I trust in the things that you create. So if I think about whether I'm directly partnering with people in my life, whether it be on this podcast, surrounding myself with people that are committed to being unreasonable and unrealistic and like shooting for the moon are the types of leaders that I want to be around. And I get to trust in those. That creates trust for me. People that are up to big things creates trust because people are willing to risk to create magnificent things. So for me, I'm walking away with looking at the different relationships in my life and being like, what's the vision that they're holding that I can't see? What's the vision that they're holding that's gonna somehow incorporate me possibly in the future? And the opportunity for me is to actually just trust it now and to be in the process with them and to surround myself with people like that. Because what I know is that where I'll be in a year, if I do that, will be unrecognizable to where I am. And we will all be playing massively bigger games than we are right now. And then what we'll get to celebrate on season 3 is going to be things that I can't even conceive of in this moment. But if I'm playing with people like you, CJ, and I'm continuing to play with you, Jason, and everybody else in my life, we're going to have this collective of leaders that are committed to creating disruption for a better world. And Absolutely. For me, that's really what a lot of this podcast is about, is shifting the ego conversations and allowing people to step into more of who they are, for me to step into more of who I am so that I can make the impact that I'm like, CJ, you said the word destiny, right? The thing that we're destined to create. And so for me, that's what's really, really important. And trust is just the single word right there.
Well said.
Wow. That's a beautiful closing. CJ, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, everyone. I'm on the socials at CJ Johnson Jr. And thanks so much for having me be a part of this conversation, Jeff, Jason. I'm learning a lot just from speaking with you guys. So I really appreciate being here. Thank you for everybody that's tuning in and listening to us as well. I hope that you're able to take something from this and keep it moving.
Yes, thank you for the closing. If you got something for yourself, we'd love to hear about it. And so we champion celebration and acknowledgement, so we'll be sure to respond. We invite you to send an email to gentlementhepodcast@gmail.com or join our Facebook and leave a comment. We also will upload these episodes to YouTube where we can do dialogue there. And we're thinking about Discord and Twitter. So those are other places we're looking at as well. I said that in the last episode where we're going to commit to it and step forward in it.
Stepping into the unknown.
Next episode. By the time this airs, we will have these things. But thank you for tuning in. Jeff, any last words?
No, that's perfect. See everybody for the next episode.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
See y'all.
All right.